Hello and welcome to Guns and Gear, and this is going to be sort of a part 2 video. I made a video talking about general purpose camp knives, okay? And in the first video I talked about these knives over here, and now we're going to talk about these knives that I have on the other side of the ruler here, or what I call bushcraft knives, okay? Now the definition for a bushcraft knife is just as varied as any other types of knives out there, but I normally think of a smaller knife. I normally think of a bushcrafting type of knife as being something like 4.5 inches in blade length, and sometimes even smaller. I probably should say 3.5 to 4.5 inches. Okay, and they generally come in 2 basic grinds, and one of those being a Scandi grind and the other one being a convex grind. And they both have their attributes and they both have their weaknesses. And what I have found is I like both. I like both grinds, but if I'm going to use a knife as a general purpose knife, then I usually am going to prefer the convex edge. The convex edge just has more steel around where the edge is, and it's going to be a more durable edge. But a Scandi grind, and here's an example. This right here happens to be one of only 2 Spyderco knives that I own. This is the Spyderco Bushcrafter, okay? And they did take this knife out of their catalog, and I think it was because they were having trouble with the spalted maple handles not being stabilized and cracking and things of that nature. But I guess I got a good one. When I got it, it was actually in a sealed bag with oil. I think it was linseed oil or something that was on the handle. It was actually oil all over that little packaging. But at any rate, I think Spyderco really knocked one out of the park with this knife. This is the most comfortable handle shape that I have ever had. I just love the way this knife feels in my hand. And no matter what kind of grip that you try to use, and those are pretty much the basic 3 grips, it really does well. It really does well. The steel that they use for this knife is 01, which 01 is a high carbon steel, kind of in the same category as a 1095 or an A2 type of steel. This has a Scandi grind. Now, to give you a quick definition of a Scandi grind, it's also called a 0 degree grind. In other words, the grinding, which this is all straight stock, the grinding goes down to the edge there's no micro bevel or anything of that nature involved in it, like you see with many knives. And that really, I think the degrees is something like 12.5 degrees on both sides or something of that nature, and I could be wrong about that, and there's probably variations in that. But at any rate, what this does, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of the grind here. I don't know if I can get it to focus in on that. But what you have is a grind that comes to a fine, fine edge. And it really bites into wood. And that really is why the Scandi grind is very popular with folks that like to do a lot of woodworking projects when they're camping. Okay? It really bites into the wood well. But because of what makes it bite into the wood really well, it also makes the edge a little bit weaker than other edges. Okay, so you have to be careful with that, especially when you're using steels like a 01 or 1095 or A2, those types of high carbon steels. But other than that, man, what a great knife. And it really came with a well thought out sheath, I thought. It's a leather sheath that is basically very similar to a lot of sheaths that you see with bushcraft types of knives. Has some lashing points on it. It also has a plastic liner inside of it. And I just think they really did a great job. Spyderco really did a great job with this knife. And I think they were coming back out with this knife with micarta handles. But I'm not positive about that. I know I've seen them out there. I don't know if it's out there for 2012. But if it is, this is a great option. Now the next knife is made by a very small company. It's kind of a one-man operation. This is made by Fiddleback knives, okay, and Andy Roy is the owner-operator, and he really makes a nice knife. Now this is also 01 steel, and as you can see, he does not grind away all the marks from tempering the steel. This is an excellent design knife. I think it's this knife also has a convex edge, but if I'm not mistaken, he also offers these knives with Scandi edge, if that's what you would prefer. The design of his handle is very ergonomic, fits very well in your hand. I like the broader blade of the knife, and this is just an excellent camping knife right here. And the knife, the sheath that came with it is a Sharpshooter brand sheath, which is a company that makes, I think they are the exclusive sheath makers for Bark River knives. But anyway, it's a top quality sheath, and this is just an excellent option. Now, I think this is called the Woodsman, but I may be mistaken. And this has a 4.5 inch blade, just a little bit over 4.5 inches. And with the convex edge and that broad sweeping blade that it has and sweeping tip, this really makes an excellent camping knife. Now the next knife, I really can't talk a whole lot about it. I've only used it once. But I like the knife. This is the first knife that I've had that has more or less that dropping, sloping make to it. I don't know that I really like that. I call it a bent knife. But the knife really feels good in the hand. This is made from Blind Horse knives, and this knife was made specifically for David Canterbury's channel, the Wilderness Outfitters. This is when they first started making them. This knife does have a Scandi edge, and it's a little bit bigger knife than you would normally see for a bushcrafting type of knife. The blade length on it is 5.5 inches, and I've really come to like the design of the knife. I didn't think I would like it when I first bought it, and I went on a camping trip earlier this year before I injured my arm. It was just an overnighter in the woods, and I used this knife, and I really like the size of it, and I'm starting to like that bend in the knife, but that's going to take some getting used to. I guess I've just been too used to straight spine knives. And here is a knife that I've used a lot. This was my very first bushcrafting type of knife. This is a Bark River knife. This is their Aurora, and I think it's probably one of their most popular knives. This one, like I said, I've had this knife probably 6 years, 7 years, or close to it. And this is another knife made from A2 steel, and it has a convex edge. The blade on it is a rather short 4.5 inch. It's not quite 4.5 inches, just under 4.5 inches. But this has a pretty good size stock. You see it tapers just a little bit. It's thicker in the handle, and this one has spacers and nice Samber Stag handles. And this feels really good in my hand because it's thick. And it feels really good in my hand. This is a knife that I treasure this knife. This is an excellent knife. Now, because I like that knife so much, I bought another type of that same knife, and that's what this one is. This is called a Nebula, and this is also from Bark River. Now, I don't know that they still make this knife. I know they still make the Aurora. I don't know that they make this one. And this one is just basically, it's just a little bit longer. Okay, it's just over 4.5 inches in length. Basically the same type of blade profile, and it has a convex edge, but it uses that, and I'm going to forget the name of this, it's a Sandvik S757, something of that nature steel. It's a stainless steel, and the reason I bought this knife was because it was in stainless steel, and I spend a lot of time kind of romping around in the swamps, and here in the south it's very humid, and I live near the coastline, so salt is a problem, and a good stainless steel knife is hard to beat. This has been an excellent knife for me. I really love the handle. Look at the wood on that handle. Now this is ironwood, is the type of wood that it's called, and it's just about the prettiest pattern that I've ever seen. And you'll notice that, you know, it uses mosaic type of pins, kind of decorative. But I was really looking for a stainless steel knife, and that's what I got in this knife right here, and it has really turned out to be a nice knife. Now, I should have put one out on the table and I didn't do it, but probably the quintessential bushcrafting type of knife would be the Mora. And I have a couple of Moras. They're very inexpensive, and they have the Scandi type of grinds to them. And it's a very cheap alternative to see if you like that type of grind, if that's the kind of grind that you would like to spend a little bit more money and get a better knife. Moras are great knives. And when I say inexpensive, I'm talking about these knives are like 12 bucks, 15 bucks. And to get a quality knife at that price is almost unheard of today, but Moras really have a great reputation of being a pretty good knife. They're an excellent knife for starting out in woodsmanship or bushcrafting or whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. Now another knife that I put on the table that I'm just going to talk about briefly is a neck type of knife, and that's what this knife represents for me when I bought it. This is another Bark River knife, and it's made with 154 cm steel. It's a very small, handy little knife. Okay, this knife also has a convex edge, and it is just an excellent little knife. And what I was thinking was a neck knife, in my opinion, I normally use a pocket knife for. You know, the task that I would use a neck knife for is more or less I use a pocket knife for. And this knife right here, with this sheath that has a Kydex sheath, and it's very tight fitting. There's no chance of this thing falling out of there. You really had to put some effort to get the knife out, which is the whole reasoning behind it. You can just basically put you some paracord or something like that around there and wear it around your neck. And whereas I like that idea, the few times that I've carried this knife, what I have found is that it does not replace my pocket knife. And the reason that it doesn't replace my pocket knife is I'm able to deploy the knife with one hand because this is hanging around my neck. But what I find is that it still takes two hands to put it back. You know, to put it back in here, it takes two hands. So I know a lot of people like the Izula, I think is how you say it, the Izula little knives, the little neck knives, and you know that knife option is a great option. Small fixed blades are always going to be more durable than any folding knife, no matter who makes it or what the design is. A fixed blade is obviously going to be more durable, right? Because a folding knife, and I have an example in my pocket. This is a Benchmade assisted opening knife. This knife right here is broken in the middle, isn't it? You have to release the lock and fold it up, but you can do that with one hand. And a good one-handed knife is just a handy knife to have, and you'll find yourself using that a lot. So I put an example of a neck knife out there, but what I have found out is I still end up just using whatever pocket knife that I'm carrying more than I would the neck knife. Alright guys, well that's going to probably end my video on talking about the general purpose knife, and in this case we were talking about some bushcrafting knives. Interested to see what you guys have to say. If you haven't tried a bushcraft type of knife, they make some really nice knives out there. There are some really good examples out there. This is by no means even a good showing of bushcraft knives, but these are the knives that I've gotten. I have found that I like a Scandi edge when I'm whittling and doing wood projects and things of that nature, but for a general purpose knife, I really do like a convex edge better. And maybe I'll make a video later talking about the different edges and some of their attributes and some of their weaknesses. Okay? With that, thank you for watching as always, and remember to shoot straight on the range and in life. Thanks.